Hello, scientist. Today we are going to work on the traits of a scientist. So I'm going to be sharing with you our target for today. Our target today is I will learn the traits of a good scientist so that I can understand how I can be a better scientist. I will know I've got it when I can explain some traits I have as a scientist. So today I want us to be thinking this as we get started. What does a scientist look like? What does he or she look like? And then what traits does a good scientist have? So let's think for just a couple seconds. What does a scientist look like? What traits does a good scientist have? So maybe you were thinking a scientist look like these people. Maybe you thought a scientist wears rubber gloves and is busy doing work. Maybe you thought a scientist could be a boy or be a girl and that they use a microscope. Maybe you're thinking a scientist kind of has a crazy look like this scientist and they work with beakers and test tubes and colored stuff. Maybe you thought a scientist wears goggles. Maybe you were thinking a scientist has microscopes like this scientist. And maybe you were thinking a scientist could be you. And if so, you are right. You are a scientist. So in our picture here, we've got a boy and a girl that are scientists, and they're busy doing work too. Scientists are really busy doing things. So today I'm going to share with you a story, and the story is called, What is a Scientist? And you're going to hear this story. It's going to be in your classwork, and you'll just click on it and listen to it. But as you listen, I want you to think about, what does a scientist do? So you'll listen to the story and think, what does a scientist do? And we will talk about that later. So today, I want to introduce you to a new vocabulary word. You've heard this word before, scientist. But what does a scientist mean? A scientist is a person who studies or investigates a field of science and does scientific work. The other day we watched a video and we found out that there's lots of different kinds of scientists. And all those scientists do different kinds of work. So in our science notebook today, we are going to add the traits of a good scientist. And in your folder that you picked up at Open House, you should have had a boy scientist or a girl scientist, one of the two. And I'm going to show you how I did mine. So on your paper, I just want you to trim around the extra edges, and you're just going to add it in your notebook like this. Just trim around the outside edges, use some dots of glue, and add it into the very first page of your notebook. And if you need to pause the video so that you can take time to watch the video and cut out your scientist and glue it in, that's fine. Just pause the video and get your work done, and then you can come back to the video. Now, if you've got your good scientist glued in your notebook, you're going to notice that it says that the scientist has eyes to infer, and you can read what it says there. They have a head to think. They have a nose to sniff out. They have a mouth for questions, to ask questions. They have a heart to visualize. They have hands to synthesize. Their stomach is hungry for their schema to make those connections. Their waist, the good scientists don't waste time. They have a good purpose. Their feet help them stand firmly. And then their knees help monitor comprehension to understand as a scientist. And the boy scientist and the girl scientist have the same traits. Now, the next thing we're going to add to our science notebook. And once again, just pause the video so that you can cut and glue, is a paper that says Good Scientist. And these are all the things a good scientist does. Now, when you get your copy out of your folder, let me go ahead and turn my page here, you're going to notice that it is pretty big. And if you look at Miss Colson's, you're going to see that I had to trim around the edges. Down at the bottom, I even cut off some of that pretty stuff. That's okay. It's just really important that we get the words on this page. So if you'll pause the video, cut and glue the Good Scientist, and just add it to the back of your first page. So we glued our scientist here, and now we can just add it to the back. You might turn it like up on its side where your spiral's at the top so that you've got room for your Good Scientist. So pause and take time to do that. Now that you have finished adding that to your notebook, let's see what's next. Oh, we're going to cut and glue one more thing. Now, in your science folder, I want you to also look for a boy scientist and a girl scientist again. And here's my girl scientist. Let me get it for us. She looks like this. I just trimmed around the edges. I didn't go really up close. That's okay. I just wanted to trim around her. Now you might think maybe I should glue her in my notebook, and you're right. But if you notice the directions, it says it's easier if you color the scientist first. But now how am I going to color it? Well, you've got a paper in your folder that looks like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to follow the code. So if you'll go ahead and get that out of your folder and look at that with me, I'll give you a couple of seconds to get that. It tells us that we're going to color the coat, the lab coat. We're going to color the lab coat a certain color. Blue if we like one subject, red if we like another subject, yellow or green. We're going to color the coat. The pockets, we're going to make them striped or polka dotted according to the key. The lab coat buttons, these are the buttons, pink or brown. Look for any pens. Maybe you got a pen in your hand or a pen in your pocket, or maybe to you it looks like a crayon. That's okay. Color it your favorite color. Your shirt, for the girls, it's really kind of hard to see the shirt because it's kind of hiding behind the clipboard. Boys, it's easier to see your shirt. Color it based on your favorite season. Your shoelaces, these are shoelaces. You're going to color them a certain color. Your hair color, get ready for this. If you're an only child, you're going to color your hair purple. But if you have brothers and sisters, you're going to color your hair orange. Isn't that going to be funny looking? And then your face and your hands, they're going to be either blue, yellow, red, or green, depending on your pets. So you're going to color your face those colors. And then after all your coloring is done, you're just going to cut it out. And then it's going to go, and I haven't glued mine in yet because I don't have it colored yet. It's going to go on the next page. Just glue it on your next page. And then we're going to come back together during our Google Meet time, and we're going to share our scientist with each other. Okay? So when we come back together, I want you to have your scientist all colored, and if possible, go ahead and glue it in your next page, and then you're going to get to share it with your classmates. And then once you have your scientist colored and glued, I want you to go and think about one more question. This is what we want to think about, and we'll share out in our Google class time, okay? And our Google Meet will share out these ideas. As a scientist, how am I like others in my class? What makes me special and different than other scientists in my class. So be thinking about that. You don't have to give me an answer. Just think about it and we'll share out during our Google Meet. So we've got a couple things to do. One, we want to watch the video that's about this book so that you can hear the story. Two, we want to add those things to our science notebook. We want to add this scientist. We want to add these traits of a scientist. And we want to color and glue this scientist. Remember, color first, then glue. And then we will be ready to meet in our Google Meet. Okay, so I'll see you soon. Work hard.